Okay, thank you, Ryan. Good morning, Unity of Music City. It's so good to see you here in the sanctuary and also at home. We know we are all here by divine appointment. And we are happy today to have Deb Moore in the house. So let's stand and sing our first song together.
Love is my decision. It's up to me to give up my heart. And love is my decision. No one else can tell me to start. And once I decide to change my mind, God will show me how. And love is my decision right here and now. And love is my decision. It's up to me to dance down that road. And love is my decision. No one else can lighten my load. And once I decide to change my mind, God will show me how. And love is my decision right here and now. Love is my decision. It's up to me to stand on that bridge. And love is my decision. And no one else can make me forgive. And once I decide to change my mind, God will show me how. And love is my decision right here and now. And love is my decision right here and now.
Good morning. Good morning. We have a few announcements today to share with you. Of course, UMC is Unity of Music City is open. We are open at your comfort level, of course. When you come, you wear your mask, we socially distant. We're so glad, though, that we had the opportunity to view online. YouTube, it's great because those of us that are not real comfortable with that coming back thing yet, it's always nice to be able to view in. The prayer chaplains are available for your prayers. If you have a prayer request or concern and you would like to share that with the chaplains, you can make them aware of it. You can email them UOFMC prayer requests @gmail.com. Any and all prayer requests are welcome, of course. Check your email every Tuesday. They come out. 2002 membership renewal. We need those renewals in. So in case you've just kind of and you forget about it, then please try to get that in. 3 quick and easy questions. That's all. It's simple. It's easy. Take you 2 seconds to do it. There will be a leadership council meeting today at 3:30 on Zoom. So go to the email, check the email for the link so that you'll know how to get into that meeting today. At 3:30, you can, let's see. Oh, the next one, drive-through donations. And we have a drive-through donation day. We've been having people ask, can we have another one of those? Can we have another? Yes, we can, and we are. On the 20th of February, which is not too far off now, put that on your calendar from 11 to 2. All you have to do is bring food, gently used shoes, anything that's on our list for our new leash on life. There have a few requests there, and these are simple things that you can get at the store, not difficult at all. But all you have to do is just drive by, and someone will be here to get those and sort them and do all the hard stuff. You just have to, when you go to the store, pick up some extra stuff for somebody else. And right now, lots of somebody else's need our help. So thank you for doing that. And small trees, you know, I have a thing for baby trees. So I always talk about them because there's still maybe a dozen back there. So they're all waiting for those of us who would like another tree. You say, well, I don't really need another tree. Well, but that baby tree needs you, okay? So just think about it and make a small donation to the church when you decide which one you want to carry home with you, and that'll be wonderful. Call the church office if you have a desire to do that. I don't know if you have the church office number, but it's 615-847-7480 for more information, okay? Join the Lunch Bunch. We're doing the book via Zoom at 11:30 on Wednesdays. We're currently reading the book Braiding Sweetgrass by Robin Wall Kimmerer. And you can contact Karen Burr for information to see about that. It's in the happenings, our email. A lot of things go in that email. If you haven't read it, you might want to check it out. Our next book, however, we're looking ahead because it's coming up within the next couple of weeks. This Moment is Your Miracle. Spiritual Tools to Transcend Fear and Experience the Power of the Present Moment. I think we could all use a little of that right now, by David Hoffmeister. That's it.
All right. So love is the answer to every question every day.
Are you searching for answers? Torn by confusion and strife. Look deep inside your heart, there you will find answers to this mystery we call life. Love is the answer. Love will find a way. Love is the answer. Love is the answer to any question every day. When you long for understanding, when you're not sure what is true,
Our affirmation this morning is I express the peace of God. Breathe that in for a moment and affirm with me, I express the peace of God. Peace, be still. With these words, Jesus claimed his authority and calmed the stormy waters. Following Jesus' example, I too claim authority. In a stressful moment, I center my awareness in the divine presence that lives in me and expresses through me. This divine presence is perfect life, perfect love, and perfect wisdom. It is peace that nothing and no one can disturb. No matter what may be happening around me, at the center of my being, there is always peace. It is an aspect of my divine inheritance, as near as my next thought. I release all fear and tension and embrace the peace of God. As I do, divine peace radiates from the center of my being. It clarifies my thoughts, calms my emotions, and relaxes my body. In every situation, I am the presence of peace.
Take just a moment together to step into that place of peace. Peace that nothing or no one can disturb or destroy. That place of constant peace is always with us. It is always in us. It always is us. So for just a moment, that's all we're going to focus on. Nothing else matters. Nothing else is even here. The person sitting next to you doesn't matter. The person speaking to you doesn't matter. The piano doesn't matter. The news you heard this morning doesn't matter. The condition of the world doesn't matter. Viruses don't matter. In this moment, all that matters is you and your connection to divine peace. Even the you that you think you are doesn't matter. Your personality and your face and your name and your job and your relationships, set all of that aside. To be in this moment of your truest, highest self, in communion with the divine. That is where peace lives. That is where peace is born anew in each moment that we choose to focus on it. So let's take a moment together right now to set aside all that does not matter and to be at one with divine peace in the silence. In the silence. This place of peace is not something that we think into existence. It is the peace that passeth understanding, the peace that is deeper than our human mind can conceive. It is never, ever far away.
I surrender all to you. Take my heart and my soul too. I know you hear each time I call. I surrender all. I surrender everything. All I am to you I bring. With gratitude on you I call. I surrender all. I surrender all. I surrender all to you. Take my heart and my soul too. I know you hear each time I call. I surrender all. I surrender everything. All I am to you I bring. With gratitude on you I call. I surrender all. I surrender all.
Thank you all so much. Good morning, everyone. Welcome to Unity of Music City Online. I'm Deb Moore, and you are here for a reason. The title of the talk today is Go Your Own Way. And I want to apologize right up front for those of you who are visual learners, but there ain't no PowerPoint today. You're just going to have to hear me talk. I fought with PowerPoint for about 3 hours yesterday afternoon and finally decided that I would let it win. I went my own way. Thank you so much. You can go your own way. You know, of course, as I was working on this, I was thinking about that Fleetwood Mac song. I think it's Fleetwood Mac. You can go your own way. Right? You remember that song? And I thought, I'm going to go look up the lyrics because every now and then you have a pop song that has these wonderfully spiritual lyrics. It's like a gift, right? It's like the first time that you see the spirituality behind Dan Fogelberg's leader of the band, right? And you're like, oh my gosh, that might be about Jesus. So I went and looked up the lyrics to You Can Go Your Own Way, and they didn't help a bit. No, it's just all about two lovers breaking up with each other, right? Get out of here, go your own way, get on out of here. And that's quite all right. It works anyway. I'll tell you what, I called it this. I had an original title to this talk that I changed. The title that I really wanted to have was How to Be an Anti-Evangelical. And the reason that I didn't use that one, because I had this horrible vision of someone out there in the world finding a PowerPoint slide that said how to be an anti-evangelical at Unity of Music City, and then the rumors would fly about who we were, and like we care. But nonetheless, I decided to hold off on that. But that's really what this talk is, how to be an anti-evangelical. So there's a book that I've mentioned, and I know Vic has mentioned it before, called How to Be an Anti-Racist by Ibram X. Kendi. As much as I mention this, hopefully people know that if you haven't read it, I strongly recommend it. And so one of the first things that Kendi does, and what he bases this book on, is a series of definitions. Let's define these terms. Let's know what we're talking about here. And he talks about how people, he doesn't talk about people as being racist or anti-racist. He says that ideas and policies and laws and behaviors and thoughts and sentences can be racist or anti-racist, but the person can switch between those on a daily basis, right? A person can one moment be engaged in a behavior that's racist and literally could an hour later be engaged in a behavior that's anti-racist. So in the same kind of way, people are either one or the other. And there is no such thing in Kendi's book as a non-racist. There's no neutrality, right? So it's kind of like Switzerland in World War II. They love to claim that they were neutral, but the truth is, if you ain't fighting Nazis, you're helping them, right? And so that's the idea that he had there. So in the same kind of, we need to think about the parts of speech. That's what Kendi is doing for us, is he's helping us recognize the parts of speech here. We use an adjective as a noun. We call that a nominalized adjective in professional speak. Don't try this at home. I'm a professional. But it's about misusing the parts of speech. So racist is an adjective, and we've turned it into a noun, that a person is that thing, right? In the same way, evangelical is an adjective. You can have an evangelical church, or an evangelical idea, or evangelical fervor. But we've turned that into a noun, right? An evangelical is a person who goes to a particular church or believes a particular thing. It comes from the verb to evangelize, right? And it essentially refers to the belief that non-believers must be converted. An evangelical wants to convince others of the exclusive truth of their belief system. And where this whole thing started to begin with, those of you who were raised in a church like Sherry and I were raised in, it comes from something we call the Great Commission. And the Great Commission was when Jesus said to his disciples, you are to go into all the world and preach the gospel. That's the commandment I leave with you. That's your great job that I give to you. And different theologians over the years have differed about what that really means, and there's a lot of great new theological study being done on whether or not Jesus really meant to be evangelical the way that modern Christianity has grabbed on to the idea of evangelizing. But that's not what this talk is about. I'll let you go find that out on your own. An evangelical, for our purposes, wants to convince others of the exclusive truth of their belief system. So how to be an anti-evangelical, as I speak about it today, has nothing to do with being against other people who might identify as evangelical. It has to do with our own way of being. It's about being the kind of person who truly honors the other paths that people may be on. Truly honors it. And that's bigger work than we realize at times, right? Honoring their path without trying to change them. It's about honoring how they see the world and what has resonated with them. Now, we know the old adage, we've all done enough, psychotherapy and psychobabble. study in our lives, that we know the old adage that it's impossible to love someone else unless we love ourselves first, right? That's a pretty basic concept that I think we're all pretty much in agreement with that. And if you've lived the kind of life that I have, then you've learned that lesson over and over again. And you've found those moments where you're like, I really do have to honor and love myself first. Then I'm free to show up for other people. And in the same kind of way, in order to be anti-evangelical about whatever it is you believe, and you can be evangelical about anything. What is the best brand of soup to buy? You can get evangelical about that if you really, really have a strong feeling about it. If we really, really want to practice being anti-evangelical, then we have to stop trying to be that way with ourselves and honor the path that we're on. It's a common human trait to want to share our good moments, right? That's just part of being human. Something great happens, we want to share it. I've never had a hole-in-one. I've come close on the golf course, and even coming close has a feeling like, like you're waiting for it to fall into the cup. Is it going to do it, right? But people, there's, memes and jokes down through time about the feeling of having a hole-in-one and no one's around to see it, right? This common idea that you had this happen and no one was around to see it, and somehow it has a kind of emptiness. Or maybe you've had the experience like I have where you actually are singing a song and you are nailing that mother. I mean, you're nailing it, and you're hitting the high notes, and you're doing all these interesting runs, and you're bebopping, and you're scatting, and you're nailing it, and you are in the shower. Right? And maybe I should specify, you are alone in the shower. Right? You are alone in the shower and nobody heard it. And you know those shower acoustics, those are on point, right? Those are the best acoustics on the planet, in the shower, and you're nailing it and no one was there to hear it, right? Sometimes I just want to run out to Nikki in the living room and say, you won't believe what I just sounded like in the shower. And she'll just pat me on the head and go, okay, honey, that's good. We want to share these things with others. We have this overwhelming feeling of, I have to tell somebody about this. And I think part of that feeling is because if someone else knew about it, they would know what I'm capable of. If someone else knew about it, then they could validate my experience and validate me. That it isn't completely real until someone else makes it real. This is a self-esteem issue and a self-validation issue. And we are social creatures, this human experience that we're all having together. There's a little bit of that. It's just natural. It's part of our humanity to connect. If you believe, as I do, that we're all just individual expressions of divine spark, then maybe that drive in all of us is just that drive for all of us to bring that divine spark back into one, into unity. We do this same kind of thing with our spiritual experience. How many times have we gone to a workshop, or we read a book, or we studied a new meditation technique, and it worked, and we want to tell everybody about it? Now, first off, a lot of times I will find a new meditation technique, and it works for a little while. And then I got to change it up. And I think that's Spirit's way of making me stay engaged in my path, in my process. I'm not going to let you get complacent. You don't get to just find a trick to enlightenment and just use that all the time, and then you don't have to think about it anymore. Right? But we want to share this with others, right? And we want them to get excited about it with us. And that's a little evangelical, right? I need you to get excited about this with me. I need you to even adopt my practice. Then it somehow validates the path that I'm on. When we need to see, for others to see the world in the way that we see it, we're being evangelical. And at its very worst, evangelicalism turns into cults and conspiracy theories. And we've had enough of that. In its moderate self, it's church. And its least self, it's sales, right? And so it's a part of our lives, this evangelizing others into buying a Toyota, or evangelizing others into seeing the world, the existence of the world, this human journey in the way that I see it. We try our best at Unity. We have for years. We've tried our best at honoring all paths. It's kind of a part of who we are. We almost go as far as the Unitarians. The Unitarians just put it right into their principles. We honor all paths. But even sometimes the most open-minded churches get a little bit stuck in the way they see things. And now that I have opened my mind and found the way, right, I'm going to close it back again and restrict it to this one way of seeing things. It's okay, though, that organizations have to have an identity. And so they have to come up with an organizing structure, like these are our principles. These are the things that tie us all together. This is how we know, people know whether or not to participate or become a part of this one community or not. But sometimes we make the assumption that everyone who is a part of our group believes the same way that we do. And they don't. Right? When I was a teenager, we went to a church in Denver, Denver First Church of the Nazarene. It was a very, very large church. I've mentioned it before, if you've heard me speak before. Huge, huge church. And I realized, now I'd been raised in the Nazarene church. My dad was a Nazarene preacher. My grandpa was a Nazarene preacher. I was just immersed in it. And to me, by golly, a Nazarene was a Nazarene was a Nazarene. There's one way to be a Nazarene. That's what a Nazarene is. And then I get out there to Denver, and I've suddenly, after a couple of months in there, I realized that there was this whole little cluster of people at Denver First Church of the Nazarene who were charismatic. They were like speaking in tongues and laying hands on each other and doing all kinds of stuff that was not Nazarene. It was not. I learned this because my best friend, my senior year of high school, her family was part of that little cluster. And I got a little inside view at this little cluster of folks. They had decided to, and you never knew they were there, because they were smart enough, like most folks, to, when in Rome, do as the Romans do. And they knew back in those days, I'm not sure what's going on in the Nazarene church these days, but I can tell you that in 1981, if someone had started speaking in tongues in the middle of a Nazarene church service, an usher would show them the door. That's what would have happened. So these folks were smart enough to just kind of, when in Rome, do as the Romans do. And they were able to fly under the radar, and they went there because every single one of those families had kids, and we had amazing youth programs. And they wanted their kids to have that benefit. But it was my first lesson in recognizing that not everybody in a group necessarily believes the same way. When I first started going to this Unity community, I believe it was 98, might have been 97, I can't remember, somewhere around in there. We were over on Lebanon Road, and I'll tell you that it looked a lot different than it does today. And in 1998, about 75%, I'm guessing, about 75% of the congregation was gay and lesbian. Right? A much higher percentage than now. We're a very diverse congregation. We have a mixture, but we don't have that high a percentage any longer as we did back then. And so I first stepped into Unity, and I heard what Unity believed, and it resonated with me, and I said, yes, I believe that. What I didn't know was that a lot of folks who went to church didn't necessarily believe that. They just had nowhere else to go. And being a gay person or a lesbian person and being able to walk into a church on Sunday morning and not hide, that was their driving motivation, period. And I began to notice over the years that as other churches became more affirming, traditional Bible-believing churches, non-metaphysical, more literal churches, as they became affirming, we began to lose a few of those people. And come to find out, they didn't really think the same way we did. They didn't agree, and that was okay. We thought that we were leaving enough space here, right? We used to say that you can be anything and be unity. You can be Buddhist and be unity. You can be Jewish and be unity. You can be Baptist and be unity. But some folks began gravitating towards places that spoke more to their belief system. We have this mistaken idea that everybody who belongs to this community sees things the same way, and we don't. As good of friends as Denise Jurgen and I were and have been and are, she's still around, and are for many, many years, over 2 decades now, we don't always see things the same way. We have differences of opinion about things, and that is okay. We join together, though, as a community so that we can continue to hone and refine our faith identity as individuals. For me, faith is the moment when I choose to believe something that I cannot prove to anyone else. That's my own definition of faith. And these have actually become fewer over the years, but they've been honed. It's like early on in my spiritual journey, my spiritual understanding was this big, kind of hazy, amorphous bank of clouds. And then over the years, those clouds have cleared, and there's 4 or 5 mountain peaks that are left, right? And there's those mountain peaks that I can stand on, that I can rely on. But it's clarified. It's become clearer. And these few mountain peaks are those things that I cannot prove, but I believe anyway because they've been honed throughout my life. They've been refined. They've proven themselves to me. And although I'm happy to talk about them when the occasion arises, and I'm not ashamed of them, I keep them a lot closer to me these days. I don't need anyone else to believe them. There was a day in my 20s, there was a time in my 20s, not just one day. There was a time in my 20s when I needed other people to see it my way. I needed other people to believe what I believe, to make it real. And that is a frustrating way to live. You'll make yourself crazy living that way. Right? But getting to the point where I don't need anyone else to see it the way I do, and I keep it closer to my vest, right? And not only that, but I pick my audience. Because I don't need to sit and argue with one of my science professors over whether or not astrology is valid. It's not going to serve me, and it's not going to do anything for them. Astrology is one of those things that I have chosen as a mountaintop. It's proven itself to me as something I can rely on. I can't prove it to anyone else. I can't lay out to you why it's valid. Another sane, rational human being could look at it and go, that is a bunch of horse hockey, and they're free to believe that. Right? I was watching a show recently. Nikki and I watched a show. I think it's on Netflix or Amazon. It's called Surviving Death. If you haven't seen it, I strongly recommend it. I think it's like 5 or 6 episodes. And it's about things like near-death experiences and reincarnation and ghosts and mediumship and all those kinds of things that a lot of us really like around here. And so I strongly recommend it. But I think the last episode was about reincarnation. And they had a couple of kids that they were doing this little, show about, that centered the show around. And there were some things that they had in common. One is that these children, who we believe now may be reincarnated beings, and they've connected with who they have reincarnated from. About 18 months in, they went through a series of night terrors because they still remembered their previous death and their previous, what had caused them trauma. And about 5 years was the magic time when they still remembered, and they now had the skills to verbalize it. And they could talk about it, right? Mommy, I remember this. I know when someone else was my mommy, when so-and-so, and they can talk about it. The 2 kids that they profiled, it was unbelievable. Like, you really need to go, like, stunning, the detail that they had. But in both of those instances, the mothers of these children, who were the first to hear their story, the mothers talked about, who do I talk to? People are going to think I'm crazy. I have no one to talk to about this. They'll think I'm nuts. One woman even was hesitant to talk to her husband about it, right? So this idea that others, a recognition that others may not see the world the way I see it, and I've got to be careful with this information. It is possible to be your own guru and follow your own path. More so than ever, it is possible to connect with people who see the world the way you do. The internet is full of conspiracy theories. It's also full of really wonderful resources that people can have as they build their own, as they engage in their own spiritual path, right? So am I suggesting that we should all be solitary practitioners and not be part of a spiritual community anymore? No, that's not what I'm suggesting. This spiritual community is the place where we come together and we refine and we learn and we share with each other. In the same spiritual community is the place where you're not necessarily evangelizing, you're just sharing, right? I'm able to share with you some things that have worked for me, and you can share with me. It is my sincere hope that this community grows and evolves and becomes the next best version of itself. But I do believe that for us to be true to our vision, for me to be true to my own beliefs, that the first layer for all of us has to be our individual solitary practice. You know, a lot of times people come into church empty, lost. And what that person should ideally be met with is a lot of people who are full and not lost. Right? Not just a message or a solitary messenger, not just a set of principles or an ideology, but a group of people who know what path they're on. And they know that it's working for them. And they're willing to honor that yours may look different, but I'll support it along the way. I will help you find your way along it if you need. I believe that that has to be what drives this community forward, so that this then becomes a resource for reminders and sharing ideas and tools and having shared experiences together about our spiritual journey. You know, more than ever lately, I've been having this sense that something pretty big is ending and something pretty big is beginning, right? There's kind of this quake of transformation happening in the world right now. I mean, for goodness sakes, Christopher Plummer died, right? Cicely Tyson, right? Now, I know that part of that is just the aging process and everything, but there's something bigger and deeper. This whole pandemic is the manifestation of something bigger and deeper, I believe, in my own belief system. There are people who are reaching back for their nostalgia. There's a huge wave of nostalgia I feel happening right now. Anybody a member of that Facebook group, I Remember Nashville When? Right? I remember Nashville, a huge group of people who just sit around and talk about how wonderful Nashville used to be and what happened, right? Where did it go? But people who have a real attachment to a Nashville that was. I know that this area certainly doesn't look like what it did when I came here in 1982. Not at all. There's this nostalgia. Just 3 days ago, I got an invite for a Facebook group for people who used to work at the cooker. One of them would be me, right? And in 3 days, there's over 600 people on that Facebook group now. And people talking about how wonderful it was, and those were the best days of our life. And I'm sitting there reading all those thinking, man, It was great. Why didn't we know that? And then I go back and I remember that actually we had some really moments of big bitching back then, right? We were mad about our side work and we just got double sat, and there were some really, but our memory, our nostalgia about it, our trying to reach back in the past for something that felt more solid, something that felt somehow a little bit more real. I believe that this is the time, this transformative period that we're in, to fix our sights on our individual teachers and gateways and practices and rituals and understand whatever it is that works for us, and say, that is something that's one of my mountains right there. That is one of my mountains. And I'm ready for this transformation that is to come. You know, this past year, I was just talking with Benita and Crystal before the service, and I was saying to them, you know, I've been okay through this pandemic, but I'm ready for it to be over now. I'm done, right? And I'm a homebody. I could sit at home forever and ever and ever, amen, not leave for weeks at a time and be completely happy, and I'm ready for it to be over with. Some of you natural extroverts, my heart cries for you, because I know that this has been a challenging time for you. But I can tell you this, subtly, on some kind of level, that I may not have always been conscious of, something profound has shifted in me over this past year. I was listening to something the other day. They were talking about, somehow in the same sentence on television, they managed to say the word proof and profound. And my little English teacher heart went, oh, I wonder if they have the same root, right? Let me go look up the etymology of these words, proof and profound. It would make sense, wouldn't it? That somehow if something profound happens to me, that is in and of itself a kind of proof. That is my proof that I need, that this is big. They don't have the same etymology. They don't have the same root. Nothing I looked up worked this week. But it still was profound to me to think about the proof that I can find in my own profound experiences. And one of the things that has happened for me on a profound level this past year is this: I care less about what other people think than I ever have in my entire life. Hallelujah. I say I care less because I still care some. We all still care some. But I care less about it than I ever have in my life. I am what I am, as Popeye used to say. I believe what I believe. I stand on the mountains that I stand on. And what other people have to say about that or believe about it or think about it is none of my business. Couldn't care less. Sorry. The not caring about what other people think comes from that increasing and clearer sense of what I believe. It comes from focusing on that individual practice, not trying to evangelize, not trying to convince anybody, not worrying about what other people think, but focusing on my path, lighting the incense that I need to light at the moment when I need to light it, right? Stopping to meditate in the moment that I need to stop and do that. Focusing on the things that work for me, and I don't necessarily need to tell anybody about it. I mean, even when I've resisted, even if I have a great meditation moment, oh my, that was beautiful, oh my gosh, yes, enlightened. I don't necessarily even go in and tell Nikki, oh my God, my meditation was incredible. It wasn't for Nikki. You know, Thomas Paine wrote a piece called The Age of Reason, and in that piece he puts forth this idea that revelation is for the person that something was revealed to, which is one of the reasons why after pretty much, winning the American Revolution for us, he ended up with only 6 people at his funeral, was because people didn't like what he wrote after that. But he said this idea, he said, maybe the person who gets the revelation, that's who needs that message. Maybe the 10 Commandments were for Moses. Not for the rest of us. If they were for the rest of us, God would give it to the rest of us. God gave it to Moses. Now, you can think what you want to about that, but here's the idea. That idea of looking for my own revelation. What has been revealed to me. That is what carves and creates my journey through this human wilderness. You can go your own way. You don't need anybody's approval. You don't need to make sure that you fit into the principles or the creed of any organization or any church. You don't need the Pope's blessing unless you think you need the Pope's blessing, and then that's fine. I honor your path. You don't need me to agree with you. You don't need Vic to agree with you. You don't need Denise Jurgen to agree with you. You don't need Deepak Chopra to agree with you. I was thinking when Sherry was holding up the books or showing the slides of the books for Lunch Bunch, how many wonderful books we have studied down through time here at Unity of Music City. And some of the most beautiful moments in classes that I have had are moments when people stop and say, well, no, wait a minute, that doesn't quite ring true to me. Because just because someone published it and printed it on a page doesn't make it your gospel. So what is your gospel? What is your good news? You can share that with others, but don't expect them to believe it. Namaste, everybody.
Thank you, Deb Moore. As usual, you give us just what we need to keep our mind occupied for the rest of the week until we can get another one next week. So let's take just a moment to consider all of the prosperity that we have in our lives, whether it's from external sources, financial sources, or whether it's internal sources, such as all the love that we have in our hearts and we see through our lives and through other people. And let's keep in mind that the church is accepting your tithes and donations through PayPal or Square, through the website, or we have a mail slot at our front door that you can swing by and drop your tithe and offering in the mail slot, or you can just put it in the mail. So several different ways for you to give of your tithes and offerings. So let's all say together our offering affirmation. I am open to receiving floods of financial abundance with ease so that I may be able to give back even more to the world around me. And through that, we are leaving a legacy of love.
Join us in the prayer for protection. The light of God surrounds us. The love of God
enfolds us. The power
of God protects us. The presence of God watches over us. Wherever we are, God is, and all is well.
We are love, joy, and peace. Everything else we release. We are love, joy, and peace. This is our gift to the world. We are love, joy, and peace. Everything else we release. We are love, joy, and peace. This is our gift to the world.